for SSI, if you are approved, you're automatically approved for Medicaid here in the state of Louisiana. Some other states are a little different, but here in Louisiana, we're fortunate that if you are approved for SSI, you are automatically approved for Medicaid, meaning that they send you the Medicaid card. You don't have to have any contact with Medicaid. If you're approved for SSDI, there's no Medicaid through that benefit, but there is Medicare that's available to the individual after 24 months of being on our rolls. There are a couple of conditions that are approved immediately for Medicare. Those are, for example, ELS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and also chronic renal failure, where you're dependent on dialysis. Those are a couple of examples. With SSDI, it pays certain dependents of the person who is disabled, but with SSI, it only pays the person with the disability, not any dependents. And the reason for that is that SSI is a needs-based program. You don't have to have worked and paid into Social Security at any time to qualify, but it is based on a person's income and resources. So with that being said, the individual and the parents, if it's a child, must have very low or no income. Same for resources, very low or no resources. As a matter of fact, the resource limit, which we're going to review a little later, but just to let you know, for an individual is $2,000. So that's not a whole lot of resources. In other words, it's not very generous. If you have any resources over $2,000, you would not qualify for the SSI. So that is very much in line with the Medicaid resource guidelines. And that's the very reason why, if you're approved for SSI, you're automatically approved for Medicaid, because their income and resource criteria are a mirror image of each other. So as I mentioned previously, for SSI, no Social Security contributions are needed. When you work and you look at your pay stub, if you see FICA, F-I-C-A, deductions, those are your Social Security and Medicare contributions. But for SSI eligibility, you don't need to have paid in through work. You do have to meet certain residency and citizenship requirements. For residency, you have to live in the United States or in a U.S. territory. For citizenship, you do need to be a citizen or national of the United States, or be what we call a qualified alien, or be a member of an American Indian tribe or an American Indian born in Canada. But I want to go back to what we consider to be a qualified alien. Even if you are not a U.S. citizen, but you are here in the United States legally, there are a number of situations where you are considered to be a qualified alien for SSI. Now, those criteria are vast. So for the purposes of what we are informing you about today, what I'm going to say is that if a person is in the United States legally, even though they're not a citizen, they may have eligibility for SSI. I recommend that you go ahead and apply, or that you help someone apply, and leave it up to us to look into those details of qualified alien. We would rather receive an application where an individual thinks they're eligible based on the qualified alien criteria, or is wanting to know if they're eligible, and us, do the footwork, and unfortunately maybe find out that you're not eligible based on that criteria. We would rather look into it, in other words, than you say, oh, I don't think I'm eligible, or I don't think this individual that I'm helping is eligible, and I don't want to submit an application. Go ahead and submit it. We will be glad to look into the fine details of that provision, okay? So the main thing to keep in mind regarding that is that if the person is here legally, they may have potential eligibility, and we'll look into the rest. Now let's talk a little bit about SSDI. So we've moved from SSI, which is a needs-based program, to SSDI, which you do have to have worked and paid in your FICA contributions. Like I said, you'll find that on your check stubs. You must have what's equivalent to about 5 years of work in the past 10 years prior to becoming disabled. So if a person wants to file for SSDI, we're going to pull up their earnings record, and we're going to look to see if they have at least 5 years worked and paid into Social Security in the past 10 years prior to becoming disabled. So that is the general guideline. But the good thing is that the younger you are, the fewer years you need to have worked prior to becoming disabled to have potential eligibility, based on having the required number of credits or time worked and paid in. As you can see in this example, a person that's age 24 only needs about 1.5 years of Social Security employment contributions prior to becoming disabled. And they basically meet the work criteria. Now, we're still going to need the medical determination, but as far as the primary criteria that allows us to go ahead and go forward with making a medical decision, that individual would only need about 1.5 years. A person 29, well, they're going to need a little bit more. They're going to need about 4 years. But like I said, the younger you are, the fewer credits you need. And the reasoning behind that is that you're young, so you haven't had enough time to work and pay in as much as other people. So it's kind of a fair way to base the work requirement. So unlike our retirement benefits, you do have to have paid in fairly recently for the disability program. So what I mean by that is that for retirement benefits, you could have paid in the first 10 years of your work life, say between age 20 and 30, and then for whatever reason not have worked and paid in anymore. Let's say you're a stay-at-home mom or dad. When you go to retire in your early to mid 60s, that's okay. We're not looking for recent contributions as long as you have the required credits for retirement. But for disability, we do look for that recent connection to contributions, as I explained here a little earlier. So like I said, if you are over age 31, we're going to look for about 5 out of the last 10 years. But if you're younger than that, less time is required to meet the non-medical requirements. So let's talk a little bit about what we mean by disability. And the reason why this is important is that the definition of disability for Social Security is not the same as for other disability programs. Social Security has its own definition of disability for children as well as for adults. So let's focus right now on the definition of disability for children. Normally, Social Security looks at the ability to work, but for children, of course, children don't work for the most part. So we're not focused on their ability to work. Instead, we look at the child's impairment and how it affects their ability to reach developmental milestones, their ability to perform age-appropriate tasks, their ability to learn at a rate of other children their age in school. So are they able to tie their shoes at the age that non-disabled children could potentially know how to tie their shoes? That type of thing is what we will be looking at. Believe it or not, we pay a lot of premature babies, 1,200 grams or less, and they can potentially be approved immediately just because they are premature. What we do is we evaluate them after 1 year to see if they've caught up, if they are thriving and progressing now at a rate that a 1-year-old would be at. So those are basically the criteria that we're looking for children. One of the things that a lot of folks ask me is something to the effect of, well, my child has asthma. Would they be eligible for SSI disability? Well, the question is maybe, and we hate to hear maybe because that's kind of a gray area there, but here's what we mean by that. A lot of children have asthma, but they are affected differently. Some children have an asthma attack periodically. Some children have asthma ongoing, but it is controlled with medication. So that's where the disability determination comes in. How much does the asthma condition affect the child's ability to operate, to go to school, to learn? Are they missing a lot of school because the asthma keeps them out of school 3 days a week? That type of thing. So if the condition is controlled substantially through medication, it will also probably not be approved. So just some idea of an idea of how Social Security determines disability. Let's talk about other ways of how children can become entitled to Social Security benefits. Well, SSI is the most common way for disabled children. Like I said, since no work criteria is required. However, we do look at income and resources, not only of the child, but also of the parent. So what happens is sometimes that a child that has a very severe disability and would otherwise be approved might not be approved for benefits based upon the fact that they or the parent has income or resources over the resource limit. So that could be a reason why the child doesn't qualify. We're not saying they're not disabled. We're saying that the income and resource component is not being met. The good thing is that at age 18, we no longer count the income and resources of the parents. So a lot of children who have had very severe or qualifying disabilities in childhood who did not qualify for SSI based upon the income and resource criteria at age 18 may very well become newly entitled, since we're no longer counting the income and resources of the parent. And by the way, the 18-year-old is allowed to file for SSI the day of the 18th birthday. So another way that children can become eligible is as a dependent of a worker who is receiving disability themselves, is receiving retirement, or is deceased. Now, of course, the worker has to be insured in order for the dependent child to be insured on their record. And the minor child does not even have to be disabled. They're a dependent of that worker who has lost the capacity to provide for that dependent because they're disabled, or because they're now retired, or because they're deceased. So that's why dependents of those workers are potentially eligible. For dependent children, they are eligible until age 18 or 19 if still in high school. If they're 18 or 19 and in college, they're no longer eligible. Okay, they're no longer considered dependents of that worker. So another way that individuals can be entitled to benefits other than SSI is as what we call a disabled adult child. We already talked about in the second bullet there that a dependent of an eligible worker is eligible until age 18 or 19 if still in high school. However, if that dependent has a disabling childhood condition that they acquired prior to age 22, it's very likely that if that condition is considered a disability, a qualifying disability through Social Security, that adult child can stay on the parent's record. And the reason why that is good and important is that the benefit amount that they receive on the parent's record is probably going to be a lot higher than what they would get on their own as SSI, for example. So if you hear of, let's say, a 56-year-old who says, yes, I'm getting Social Security benefits, but I get it on my parents' record. And that might sound like that's not right because there's a 56-year-old, you know, they're no longer a dependent in your mind. Well, no, they are still eligible because they have been found to have a disabling condition acquired prior to age 22 that is considered a qualifying disability through the Social Security Administration. So that disabled adult child can stay on that benefit indefinitely while they're still considered disabled. Okay. So the SSI benefit amount changes yearly. This year, it happens to be $943 a month. So it changes slightly every year. I want to say about $20 or so increase. The resource limits stay the same. I've been working for Social Security for way over 30 years, and the resource limits have not changed. Not saying that can't happen, but just to give you a little perspective that they tend to stay the same. Parental income, we talked a little bit about that and how it can and will affect the benefits of a child up until age 18. So we exclude a good amount of parental income. One of the ways we give exclusions is depending upon the number of other children in the household. So let me just start by explaining the example I'm showing here. This year, if there are two parents in a household, their income is from earnings, they're both working, and there are no other children in the household. The SSI check of $943 would start to be affected if the total gross earnings for both parents together is $2,864 or more. So once the parents' total gross income reaches that $2,867, it starts to affect that check of $943 of SSI. So that check starts to be reduced, okay? However, if there are other children in the household, minor children of the parents, and those children are not SSI recipients, the parental income limit increases quite a bit, because it is understood that the parental income goes towards the support of those other children. So Social Security gives those parents a lot more leeway of earnings before it starts to affect the SSI eligible child. So if the total parental income reaches $4,695 a month, that's when eligibility for SSI ends. So in the example we gave here, two parents in the household, both working. If there are no other children in the household besides the one SSI applicant or recipient, if the parent's income, wages, reaches $4,695, that child is not eligible, okay? But to explain again, this is a very simple example, but there are other scenarios here. But this gives you the idea that if in your household you have two parents working, and you have other minor children in the household that are not on SSI, your income, your parental gross income can be way over $2,867 a month. And that SSI applicant child is probably not affected by your income. But it's hard to give you examples of every potential situation with one other child, two other children. Another thing that affects the parental limit is if there's one parent with wages and one parent, say, getting VA benefits. That's one parent with earnings and one parent with benefits that are not from earnings. We'd still have to count that income, but it counts differently. So file an application, we will be glad to look into this and apply all the pertinent exclusions. We would rather have you apply than for you to think that you're not eligible when you really are. Let us take a look at it. Let us apply all the potential exclusions. But I like to give this as a guideline, even though there are so many potential scenarios that allow us to give exclusions for parents. So as I mentioned here, this is strictly an example. Filing an application with Social Security is really the only way to determine eligibility. So please do so if you think you might be eligible for benefits. So let's take a look at what we mean by what we count as earned income and unearned income. And remember, in the case of a child, this applies for both the child and the parents. So all the usual earn can be wages, it can be self-employment, anything that's earned that is in return for services that you perform and you're paid for, that's considered earned income. Unearned income is any money that comes into your household that is not part of work that you're doing. Social Security benefits, veterans, unemployment, even interest from any resource you have, that's considered income. Pensions from a private employer, cash from family and friends on a regular basis is considered unearned income. If someone helps you pay your rent monthly, that's going to count as unearned income as well. So let's talk a little bit about earnings. We give a lot of earnings exclusions to the SSI recipient. So less than half of what a person earns actually reduces their SSI benefit. So I'm talking now about not the parents anymore. I'm talking about an adult recipient who is working. Let's say it's an 18-year-old receiving SSI. How do we count those earnings that they might have? Well, we encourage a person trying to work if they want to, if they feel they can or want to. So the incentive is that we count less than half of their gross earnings against the SSI benefit check. So if someone works and earns $100 a month, that SSI check is going to be reduced by less than $50 a month because they're working and earning income. We have to count it, remember, because it is an assistance program, but we count less than half of those earnings against the SSI check. So even though the SSI check might be reduced a bit between the earnings of the individual and the SSI check they're still going to receive, they're going to have more money at their disposal at the end of the month. So we like to make that clear. We exclude food stamps, most home energy assistance. If you periodically need help paying utilities, water bill, we don't count that. And we also exclude 1/3 of any child support received monthly. So if the child is applying for SSI and they do get child support, we do exclude some of that child support. We don't count all of it against their SSI, depending upon the amount that the child support is. So let's talk about resources. What do we count and what do we exclude? This is something that there tends to be a lot of confusion about. Sometimes people think, oh, I own a home, my child's not going to be eligible. Oh, I own a car, my child's not going to be eligible, or I'm not going to be eligible. Don't jump the gun. We exclude the home you live in, one car. We exclude burial plots. We exclude some resources set aside for burial. We exclude $1,500 set aside for burial. So you can technically have a bank account, have $1,500 in it, not touch that bank account, and we can exclude it as income set aside for burial. The moment you use the funds in that bank account, however, it counts towards the resource limit. What we do count as far as resources is the value of a bank account, whether it's a checking, savings account, CD, IRA. If it's over $2,000 for the individual or child, it's going to count. Stocks, bonds, 401ks, anything that is a liquid asset, anything you can turn into cash. Because SSI is an assistance program, we do set those resource limits. We can potentially count a second car. There are some situations where we can exclude it, so don't let that deter you. Life insurance, we count only the cash surrender value of life insurance. Usually life insurance, for example, term has no cash surrender value, and life insurance, unless you've had it for a very, very long time, is not going to have a whole lot of cash surrender value. And the other thing that we do count is property other than where you live. Remember, we exclude the home you live in, but if you own a second home, we will have to look at the cash surrender value of that home and count it towards the resource limit. Something else that's very important that can affect how much SSI can pay you is your living arrangement. An adult who lives with someone else has to contribute towards the basic household expenses. If not, we do have to count as if they're receiving help from within the household. The household is not giving you $100 or $200 in cash, but they are giving you in-kind assistance if they're allowing you to live in that household and not pay your way, so to speak. The same holds true if it's a child who is living with someone other than a parent. So if the child lives with an aunt or uncle, and the parent, it's not the parent's household, we do look to make sure that the child is contributing their share towards the household expenses. Now, if the child lives in the parent's household, we don't look at that at all. It is assumed that that benefit is going towards the support of the family. But if the child lives with someone other than the parent, they do have to contribute. Now, what do we mean by contributing their share of the household, basic household expenses? Well, basic household expenses we consider to be rent, utilities, and food, period. We don't count cable bill, internet bill. If you have a landline, we don't count any of that. But we do count those basic food and shelter expenses. And if there are, for example, 4 people in the household, the recipient's share would be a fourth. If there's 5 people in the household, the recipient's share would be a fifth of those basic household expenses. So if the SSI recipient lives in a household with just themselves and one other person, the other person is the head of household. They have rental liability, but they allow you to live with them. if you don't pay your half, since there's two people, of the basic household expenses, SSI will have to look at it as if you're receiving in-kind assistance from that household. And what that means is that your SSI check will not be the full $943 a month. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that a lot of times the person in the process of filing, let's say they get approved for SSI, they're living in the household and, well, they're not able to pay their share of the household expenses because they have no income. But once they start receiving the SSI check, if they are contributing their share of the expenses out of that check, we can go ahead and increase that SSI check to the full amount. So it's important to let SSA or SSI know once you start contributing towards the household expenses if you were not able to contribute before. Okay, and the last bullet there has to do with adults and children who reside in an institution, meaning a hospital, a nursing home, or any other type of facility. If they are there for more than a full calendar month, SSI will only pay $30 a month while they're in that facility for over a month. And the reason for this is, keep in mind, once again, SSI is a needs-based program for food, shelter, basic expenses. And if you are in the hospital and receive SSI, Medicaid would be paying for your basic food and shelter expenses during the month or months that you're there. So the $30 is basically for incidentals, for snacks, for anything like that. What we consider to be throughout a month is that you're in that institution or facility prior to the beginning of the month, meaning prior to the first of the month, and you're still there throughout that month, past the last day of the month. That's what's considered a full calendar month. If you go into the hospital for a couple weeks and you come out, this doesn't apply. It's more of a situation where it's a long-term institutionalization, where the $30 a month would apply because Medicaid is already paying for your long-term stay in that facility, okay? All right, so I kind of touched on when a child attains age 18 as I went through the presentation. I mentioned we no longer count the income of the parents, only those of the child. The child does have to contribute towards the household expenses, even if they're still living with the parents, okay? If they do not, a lower SSI payment applies. Sometimes they're not able to contribute their full share because the household expenses are so high that the SSI check is not enough to contribute. Still considered income to the recipient because it is a needs-based program. And SSI will conduct a new disability determination at age 18 using the adult criteria for disability. At age 18, the adult criteria for disability has to do with the ability to work, okay? Remember, we mentioned as a child, we're not concerned with the child's ability to work because a child doesn't work. But at age 18, we do look at the disability and we look at how that disability or condition might or might not affect their ability to do some type of work in the general economy. So sometimes children who were receiving benefits lose their SSI at age 18 because when the new definition of disability is applied, Social Security finds that they can do some type of work in the general economy. Now, I'm not talking about a situation where an individual is disabled and continue and can do some work, for example, in a sheltered workshop, in a highly supervised environment. They work for ARC, something of that nature. That is not necessarily the type of work activity that would disqualify them, because that's a highly supervised work environment, et cetera, et cetera. We would be talking about a situation where an individual can go apply for a job and fill out the application, go through the interview, and they're hired for the job. That's more of the type of situation where the adult criteria of ability to work might cause them to be no longer meeting the definition of disability as an adult. So I wanted to make that clear. Okay. So what is that definition of disability in detail? Well, it has to be a physical or mental or a combination of conditions that has lasted or is expected to last 12 months or more, or be a terminal condition. Okay. We do, like I was just saying, look at the ability to work. We put a dollar value, as I was explaining a moment ago, on what we consider to be a substantial level of work activity. So in 2024, if a person is able to gross $1,550 a month or more, we consider that to be SGA, or substantial gainful activity, work activity. And what that means is that it's a comparable level of work activity that a non-disabled individual could be doing in the general economy. So if you're working as an adult, but you're grossing less than $1,550 a month, you're still within the definition of disability for Social Security and SSI benefits. We still have to count what you're earning against your SSI check, but you're still within the definition of disability due to a lower level of work activity if you're earning less than $1,550 a month. Okay. And as you can see, for blind individuals, the limit is even higher. So if a person comes in and they're an adult, they come into file for SSDI or SSI, and they say, yes, I have this disability, but yes, I am working. If they're working and earning over $1,550 a month or more, they're denied based on the level of work activity. The claim would not progress to get a medical decision. So that's just to give you an idea of how work plays into our definition of disability, and how the level of your earnings plays directly in to meeting or not meeting the definition of disability for adults. And once again, just to reiterate that you can be considered a disabled adult and doing some work, as long as it's not considered substantial gainful activity. You can continue to do that work activity. and not be considered not disabled. Okay. So with everything that we've learned today, if you want to go ahead and apply, it's very easy to do so on our website at www.ssa.gov. Please, please, please make sure you go to ssa.gov, not .com. We have some imposters out there pretending to be us. Okay, so it's ssa.gov for government. You can complete the application from start to finish. Very easy to do. You're basically just answering questions. It's what we call a SMART application. So according to how you answer one question, it will either give you other questions that are pertinent to that topic or not. So for example, if it asks if you're married and you say no, well, they're not going to ask you any more about a spouse. But if you are or have been married, it's important to say yes, because we are looking for all potential entitlements for individuals. So that's why we ask, because some people might be entitled on a spouse's record. Some people might be entitled on a parent's record if they're a child. So answer all the questions presented. They're there for a reason. The claim goes to your local office. Even if you file it online, a human pair of eyes reviews it and calls you if we need any more information. If we see other entitlements for other family members, we will call you and obtain that information. If you have any questions, in the remarks section of the online application, just say, I have some questions, please call me, and we will do so. You don't have to wait when you file online. However, if you call to make an appointment because you don't want to file online, you're going to be given a phone appointment. We really don't do appointments in person anymore. It will be a phone appointment. And that appointment might not be for several weeks or even a month or more. Our offices are very busy for appointments to file with a representative. I highly recommend that if you are able to file online, that you do so that way. You get your information into the system instantly. Someone calls you probably within that week. If everything looks good, your case is on its way to getting a medical determination. But once again, if you prefer to file with a representative, you can do so through that 1-800 number, even though your appointment might be a week or two or more away, you're still protected as of the date you finalize that appointment. In other words, the day you call and make that appointment, you're protected. Okay, that shows that you are interested in filing, and if there are any back payments due, and that's if we go by the date you made that appointment. But remember that you're still behind. You're not submitting your medical information for weeks or a month, and therefore the ball's not getting rolling towards a decision for you until that appointment is completed. Whereas if you file online, that's pretty quick, guys. So just food for thought there. I'm going to basically go through this because I just kind of mentioned all that. What you will need for the application is what you probably figured already, Social Security numbers, if parents are involved for a minor child, latest check stub, bank information. Very important is names, addresses, and of doctors, hospitals, clinics. All that will be asked, whether you file online or with a representative. That's another good reason to complete the application online, because you can take your time and go through your files and records and give a very good report on your application. So what I mean by sending your case for a medical decision, it's a state agency that we send your case to decide on the matter of disability. So that state agency reviews medical records, school records, and applies Social Security's definition of disability to see if the individual meets that criteria. That's why we ask for the names of hospitals, doctors, clinics, etc. They will request those medical records directly from them. They are comprised of teams of medical and psychological consultants, lay disability specialists. So depending upon the disability, if it's a mental disability, we would have a psychological consultant, whether an MD or a PhD, looking at those records. If it's a combination, well, we would have both medical professionals, MDs, and psychological professionals taking a look at it. But it is a team that looks at the information. We also have folks that deal with work issues like voc rehab, people that are knowledgeable as to what types of work can be done in spite of certain conditions or disabilities. So like I said, it is a team that makes that disability determination. They will send an additional questionnaire in some cases if more information is needed about work activity or daily activities, what you're able to do or not able to do. And in some cases, they may schedule the individual for an additional examination if the bit of information they need to make a decision is not contained in the medical records that they obtain. It's taking a very long time, guys, to make the medical decision, easily 6 months in some cases. And this is due to the number of cases that we have. Our agency is working tirelessly to curtail the time that it takes. But keep in mind that it will not be a quick decision in most cases. We do have expedited decision-making processes in place for people, for example, who are applying based upon terminal conditions, people who have conditions that are clear-cut, that you can basically just look at a medical record and say, yes, this person is disabled. I'll give you an example. See, it's a person that's a paraplegic. That's an easy decision to make. Those are expedited, but for other types of general conditions and impairments, it can take a while. So just no surprises. When a decision is made, a letter is sent. If approved, and it's SSI, a quick update of income and resources will need to be done, because remember, it may be 3 months ago, 6 months ago that we took your initial information. We have to make sure that the income and resource portion of the information still qualifies the individual. Anything can have happened. You may have met the income and resource criteria a few months ago, but what if there's been a change and now you have more income and resources? So we do have to get your information, and we do have to have your statement about what your financial situation is before we put you into pay. If the letter says that you are not approved, you do have 60 days to appeal. It's actually about 65 days with mail time, but you can appeal the decision if you disagree with the reason why you were not approved, and the letter will tell you why. It's important that you do appeal if you disagree. Some folks get frustrated, they don't appeal, and then 3 months later they realize, hey, here I am, I still have this disability, I still can't work, still dealing with this. And unfortunately, at that point, the person has to start all over with the application process because they're out of their appeal period. So we recommend appeals if you disagree with the reason why you were denied the benefit. Appeals can be done online. That's another advantage of filing the application online. You can also appeal online. And another good thing that comes with filing online is that you can check the status of the application on our website, and you do that through a My Social Security account. So the My Social Security account is something that you can create for yourself if you're 18 or over. If you receive benefits or have Medicare, you can easily request a replacement Social Security card. It will be mailed to you. You can report wages if you are getting benefits and are also working. You can instantly print a benefit verification letter. You can basically do just about everything you used to have to walk into the office or call an office to do through the My Social Security account if you're already receiving benefits or have Medicare. Now, we also recommend it for the general public, even if you do not receive benefits or have Medicare. So if you're 18 years or older, you can create your account and you can request a replacement Social Security card. It would be mailed to you. You can take a look at how many credits you have so far towards retirement, or God forbid, if you should become disabled. It's a very good way to keep track of your standing with Social Security. It's a good way to make sure all your hard work earnings are posted to your record, so that when those earnings have to be looked at to see if you qualify for benefits, you have credit for everything you worked and earned. And it will give you estimates of future benefits if you have enough credits at that point in time. So I just have a little caution there for people who work for city, state, or local government and don't pay into Social Security, but have paid in at some other point in their life. The estimate is not accurate for you guys. Okay, you have to go on our website and get those estimates on a special calculator. But if you're Social Security only, work your entire life, no government pension employment, the My Social Security account will give you excellent estimates of future benefits. So I highly recommend that everyone creates their My Social Security account, whether receiving benefits or not. With that being said, I've run over a little bit, but I am glad to take any questions. Daylin, if you don't mind, coordinate that for us, I would really appreciate it.
I don't mind at all. And thank you for providing that information to us. I want to say before I start trying to go through these questions, and I don't know that I can triage them, so to speak. Some things are very personal and are going to be better handled over the phone. So keep that in mind as I direct these questions to Miss Maria. It's difficult. The personal questions are personal. And so in some cases you need more information and they need more information from you. And so we won't be able to address every question. And I know next time maybe we need an hour and a half because it's all very good information and I appreciate how you go through it. Thank you so much for doing that for us. So the first question that I saw was, does the SSI and parental income slide apply to people with disabilities over age 18 too? So the slide in the slide deck, I think.
So, I'm wondering, so the SSI parental income slide only has to do with a child applicant or recipient with parents.
Okay. Thank you. Next question. Does the SSI excluded income slide apply to those who are part of the workability program? I'm not familiar with that program, maybe.
I'm not familiar with it either, but for SSI, generally speaking, if you are working and earning, wages, we would have to count that as an eligibility criteria. Now, remember, less than half of what you earn through employment is going to actually reduce your SSI check.
Okay. Thank you. Let me know when you've hit the number of questions you can take on. Okay. So what happens to those who have SSI and leave the country more than 30 days?
That's a great question. Yes, remember, one of the eligibility requirements is that you have to reside within the United States or a US territory. So if you do leave for more than 30 days, your number one, you're required to let us know before you leave the country if you know you're going to be gone for more than 30 days. And then what happens is that when you return, you let us know as well, and then we can reinstate. But it's very, very important to let us know before you leave the country. If you know you're going to be gone for more than 30 days, or let's say you leave and you intend to come back, but something happens, please let us know if the situation has turned and you're going to be gone for more than 30 days.
Okay, so the next question is about shelter expenses and whether they include maintenance and repair costs or just rent.
Rent or mortgage, utilities, and food is the only thing we count.
Okay.
Now, if you live in someone's household and they're requiring that you help with those expenses, that's a different story. But you can't say, SSI says I don't have to pay that. No, not right. But as far as what we're concerned with, it's only the basic food and shelter expenses.
Okay, good. So someone's asking, how can we let SSI know about the monthly fair share contribution of the person with disability to household expenses? Is there a form to fill out for that?
No, what I recommend you do is contact the 1-800 number. And or if you want to contact your local office, you could do that as well. The 1-800 number is basically going to take your information and send it over to the local office, and then the local office will call you. There can be some time involved. I apologize for that. There can be some time, relay time with that. So, you can do it through the 1-800 number. They won't do it themselves, but they will relay the information to the field office, your field office. But you can also contact your field office directly if you go on our website and put in the search engine office locator. It will allow you to put your zip code in and it'll give you the information for your local office. So that's really the best way to do it. You can also walk in to do that.
Okay. That's one of the questions that I'm getting. And because we are getting many questions in, I want to ask you, one of the questions is, are all SSA offices only doing phone appointments as opposed to in person, or is that nationwide?
I want to say most, and it is pretty much nationwide. But some of the offices, it's hard to answer that question. We have offices in very small rural areas that have the capacity to take, walk-in applications. So that might be different, but I can speak here for Louisiana. That's how we are operating here in Louisiana. But for post entitlement type issues, such as walking in to report that you're now contributing, that's something you can walk in to do. Now, I will say I recommend that you first try to contact your local office or contact the 1-800 number and have them have the field office call you, because on any given day, if you walk in, they may have to give you an appointment to come back for a different day. Okay, or they might say, we will call you, depending upon how busy the office is that day. So try and resolve it by phone first, but most definitely, if you find that, 30 days are passing and then I would recommend you walk in, because remember, you're trying to get your check increased.
Right. Yes, ma'am. So I know that some people have their hands raised. We don't really have the capacity to unmute anybody, and I apologize for that. If Ms. Marie is available, we'll try to take a few more questions. So put those in the chat for me if you don't mind.
Sure, we could take a few
And
more, Caitlin.
you can send us an email too, as a reminder, if you need these PowerPoint slides. I know some people are looking for the information, the specific information to go into the office with or to prepare for their application. So shoot me an email, contact us via email so that I can send that out. Let's see. Do you think it's a good idea for people to get a ticket to work to protect their SSI or SSDI? Can you speak to that?
I would say
You probably can't recommend maybe, but
yeah, and so it's such a different answer for different individuals, but I would say that if you were offered a ticket to work, certainly look into it. And the other thing is that if you have not been offered a ticket to work and are interested, you can also request one. And just generally speaking, that is a way for an individual who wants to return to work. It's called an incentive to work, whereas you can test your ability to work without your work activity affecting your SSI check too severely. We have and Dave Lynn, I'm going to send you the information and maybe you can furnish it on your website, but it's to our work incentives organization. It's called WIPA, WIPA, and individuals can literally set up an appointment to speak with a counselor there who can advise them if the individual is thinking about going back to work. So that's one thing that I would recommend a person thinking about ticket to work do is speak to a WIPA representative about that. They can speak with you over the phone or one-on-one, whatever you prefer.
Okay, great. So I know that we've heard some, there's been some calls just to the office and such about the amount of time it's taking for approvals, you would recommend contacting the 1-800 number if people are struggling or haven't received that yet?
If they're waiting on a decision, I would say it's not odd that you have not received a decision and it's 6 months. It is taking some time, even more than that. Once again, depending upon the area.
Mhm.
What I do recommend, once again, if you or someone you know can help you file online, remember, you can track status of your claim on our website through your My Social Security account. So that's an excellent and quick way and a non-frustrating way to try and look for status on your application. But like I said, depending upon the area, it can take quite a while.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we're nearing 11:30. I know we've gone over, guys, and I apologize. I'm gonna try to take one more question. Please don't send hate mail if we didn't get to yours. Do contact the office. Miss Maria has recommended that in the past. And if you don't get your answer the first time, try calling back. See if you get another individual on the phone that might be more helpful. Set up the account online, see what you can accomplish that way. Do you foresee in-person appointments being available again in the future? I know that I suspect that a lot of that came as a result of COVID, maybe even the result of the workforce changing, like the look of that changing. Do you foresee in-person appointments again for most of the things people need to accomplish with Social Security, Miss Maria?
I I can't say either way. I honestly do not know. I do know that you know, anything's possible. What we try to do is make our services as accessible as possible. And the reason we are doing phone appointments, it's because it's with the amount of
The volume.
volume that we have, doing it over the phone is more expeditious because we're not making people sit and wait in our offices. Or, telling people, yes, come in and file, but then be able to we're so
Right.
full for the day that we have to give them an appointment for a different day.
Right.
So that's the reason for it. And like I said, I really do not know
Right.
what will happen in the future.
I understand. So, I'll ask one more question. If an application was done over the phone or was not done online, can you check the status still by setting up an online account?
No, you have
Okay.
to have initiated online in
Okay.
order to check the status online.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, guys, I know that we haven't gotten to all of the questions. We had a whole lot of people registered today, a lot of people who attended. I'll definitely make a mental note to ask for more time from Miss Maria next year. She offers these on occasion with different individuals who uh, promote them or sponsor them. So look for other opportunities to hear this information. Contact us if you want the PowerPoint. Please fill out our post-event survey as well. If you have any questions, we might be able to answer some questions in our office. You're welcome to contact our office or any of the Families Helping Family Centers across the state. If you're needing the center in your area, call us and we can give you that information as well. Ms. Maria, I appreciate you coming again today. Thank you so much for providing this information. We will try to get the information. There may even be a link, honestly, on the website already about WIPA. So check out our Families Helping Families website. There are resources there. Thank you for attending. Again, I'm sorry we didn't get to all your questions, but we were happy to have you today. And I appreciate you being with us, Miss Maria. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dave Lynn. It's always a pleasure to inform your folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, have a good afternoon. Again, please fill out our post-event survey. If this is something you need more information about, let us know, and we'll see what we can do to get more of that to you. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate your time.